Tropical storm Ernesto has formed and it will begin to impact the Leeward Islands tonight and then the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico tomorrow. I've got all the newest information and your forecasts across the Caribbean and the Bahamas right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. Nice to see you on a later Monday for video number 2 of the day, but it's all for good reason. We now have Tropical Storm Ernesto just a few hundred miles east of the Leeward Islands. The impacts are already beginning, but we're really going to start to see more significant impacts tonight. So coming up, I've got all the newest information. We'll look at the watches, the warnings. We'll take a look at the potential track. I'll show you all the model data. We're going to deep dive into that. This is probably, in all honesty, the most jam-packed video I've ever created because we're going to talk about Ernesto, but we are going to go and look at the forecasts across the Caribbean and the Bahamas. I've got your island by island rain chances, so stick around for that as well. Couple of programming notes. The live radar stream will return tonight. It will then run continuously overnight until Tuesday morning, and then I will be live here at Meteo Mundo, live on stream, tracking Ernesto through the Leeward Islands starting tomorrow morning. I don't have a specific start time yet, but if you're a subscriber and you have the notifications on, you'll know when I go live. So look out for that as well. But in between, we'll have this video and we'll have the radar live stream for you. So let's get into the details. I knew there was going to be a lot of changes between the 11 a.m. advisory and the 5 p.m. advisory. And the biggest thing is that we now have a tropical storm. Again, does it look extremely impressive on satellite imagery? No, but we do have enough of a low-level center of circulation where we now have a tropical storm. This is still an elongated, ragged system. There's still a lot of gusty winds and some heavier rainfall well to the south and west, which is why we're going to start to see Ernesto begin to impact the Lesser Antilles and the Leeward Islands as we get tonight, overnight, and especially beginning tomorrow morning. So let me give you the latest statistics on Ernesto as of the 5 p.m. advisory. Winds are 40 miles an hour, so it is a minimal tropical storm. But again, we now have a low-level center of circulation, so a consolidation and a quicker development is now plausible over the next 24 to 36 hours. Pressure is still just 1,009 millibars. It is hauling west like moped speed, west at 28 miles an hour. It's 44 kilometers an hour, located now just 295 miles to the east-southeast of Antigua. That is 475 kilometers. That's going to eat up that ground at 28 miles an hour very quickly. This is the 5 p.m. track from the Hurricane Center. So through the Leeward Islands, tonight, overnight, throughout the day on Tuesday, beginning to impact the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico throughout the day tomorrow. The now official center track takes it right over Puerto Rico as a tropical storm late Tuesday, early on Wednesday, east of the Dominican Republic, east of the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas, but then recurving and getting stronger. And unfortunately, right now, we have that cone right over Bermuda early on Saturday, so we'll talk much more about that coming up as well. The numbers that you see on your screen, by the way, are live wind gusts here at Meteo Mundo. You also see the live lightning count as well. So let's break this down. As Ernesto begins to enter the picture here late tonight and overnight, we'll have winds that could bump up to 45, sustained gusts to 60. So 45 to 60 mile an hour winds are plausible from Guadeloupe north, Montserrat, Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Saba, St. Eustatius, areas like that, St. Bartholomew, Anguilla. As we go just west here, so this plot point right there from the Hurricane Center, those are winds of 50 to 55, gusts to 60. So this is why we're going to have sustained tropical storm force conditions likely in these areas. And again, it's going to try and strengthen a little bit to winds to 60, gusts to 70 as it gets closer to Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands late tomorrow, overnight, and into Wednesday morning. And then from there, just continue to strengthen as it moves away. So the first thing I want to look at here, and then we'll kind of get into the watches and the warnings, is just what's been happening. Look, we've had some heavier rain all the way down to the Windward Islands today. Some of you told me about some flooding going on in Trinidad. We did have some advisories there. We had a flash flood warning for the western districts of Barbados. We've had some heavier rain for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Martinique, Dominica. This has been the most persistent rain right here, Dominique, Martinique, St. Lucia so far, but the tropical storm force conditions are expected headed Guadeloupe north. And those are all the areas that you see with the slashed lines. Now, again, it's been kind of squally, breezy conditions up here, Ceiba and Anguilla and St. Martin. You can see the winds here from St. Thomas and St. Croix. We had a 30-mile-an-hour wind gust there in St. Croix, nearly a 30-mile-an-hour in St. Thomas. We've had a few storms developing in Puerto Rico, but it hasn't been consistent as of yet, right? Squally, gusty winds kind of coming in, but it's all going to go downhill tonight, friends, as this moves closer. So again, all of these areas in blue, tropical storm warnings. This has not changed since the 11 a.m. advisory. It's still the same areas. We're going to go over it one more time. Anguilla, Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Martin, Ceiba, St. Eustatius, St. Bartholomew, Montserrat, Guadeloupe, the British Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Vieques, Culebra, all under tropical storm warnings. That means tropical storm conditions are likely in those areas in the next 36 hours. Friends, if you want to do me a quick favor and like this video, I appreciate all of the support. If you want the latest forecast on Ernesto and across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, thank you for joining our Meteo Mundo weather community by subscribing right now. Thank you for sharing this with anyone who think you might get some relevant, important information out of it. And thank you for supporting me here via our memberships, just 99 cents a month. That's the join button that you see, the super thanks, and then the description below, the PayPal and the Venmo. I really appreciate it. So now let's start getting into the model information. This is the European model. It's still a little bit weaker and a little bit slower and slightly farther north and east than most of the models. So this one takes it a little bit closer to the Virgin Islands, a little bit farther away from western Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic as a weaker storm. Really doesn't wrap it up until it's north of Puerto Rico. So it's already behind because we already have Tropical Storm Ernesto, but that track again is a little bit farther north and east. The GFS model is still farther south and west. So right now the Hurricane Center is kind of slicing in between the GFS on the western side and the European model on the eastern side, but the GFS again brings it south of Puerto Rico, tries to kind of swing it up towards the mode of passage, and a little bit more impact for the Dominican Republic on this track. It's still plausible, but still keeping the center east of the Dominican Republic. There could be some heavier rain there, and again, still kind of, brushing the Turks and the Caicos, but nothing that would be of a direct impact even on the GFS model. Now, this is the HMON model. You're looking at the winds. You can see it moving through the Lesser Antilles, headed up towards the British and U.S. Virgin Islands, and then Puerto Rico. This would be more of that centerline track. So here it comes through the Leeward Islands. Still is a relatively ragged system. There could be some decent strengthening between the Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico, and then it moves overhead. Now, if I take myself off camera and you look in the bottom right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see the maximum winds on these frames. Notice as we get closer to Puerto Rico, those winds start to crank up over 50 and 60 miles an hour. Those are sustained winds. So the HMON is very much in line with what I just showed you from the Hurricane Center, where we would have like a 45-mile-an-hour tropical storm, sustained winds in the Leeward Islands, and then maybe up to 55 and 60 as it gets a little bit closer to the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. So obviously the weather going downhill, guys, on this track. Now, we're going to deep dive into what's happening here, and then we're going to get into what might be happening in Bermuda coming up. But the first thing I want to do is we're going to go over some of the new model information for you here. So I'm going to pull up the GFS, and we're going to track this storm a couple of different ways. All right. First of all, again, that on all of the models, we're not going to get Ernesto to wrap up and really become an extremely strong storm anywhere in this area. That's great news. And again, the forward speed is significant as well. But that being said, there's still a lot of heavy rain that's going to fall in a very wide area. And again, even outside of the tropical storm warnings, Dominica and Martinique and St. Lucia, all the way down to the Windward Islands, at least overnight, we'll still see the opportunity for some very heavy rain, but you can see how widespread that rain is going to be. And so flash flooding, flooding in general, landslides and mudslides are all going to be a problem here, all right, especially up towards portions of the Leeward Islands and the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, and potentially even the eastern sides of Hispaniola. Hoping to have not enough rain here with a very mountainous island, but it's a possibility. Now, again, the GFS is on the western side of the envelope of models. So I'll just show you that again. And the GFS, just like most models, begins to wrap it up here as it pulls away from the Turks and the Caicos. And obviously, our friends in the Bahamas will not be directly impacted outside of some easterly swells that'll be coming in. So if we break this down, this is going to be, let me start back here at the beginning. This is basically right now, then later tonight. Now we just have more consistent heavier rains coming in, more squally weather, the winds beginning to pick up as we go into this evening, overnight, and then here it comes. Again, it's hard to really pick out where the center of Ernesto would be. It probably would be near the center line of the cone. But again, very heavy rain, just inundation of rain and water and squalls. And just kind of rough weather overall for us here, guys. And you can just see it again beginning to really consolidate here into what would be a hurricane as we get later into Wednesday and Thursday. So that's what it looks like in a very sloppy system on the reflectivity, which of course is going to be your rain. Let's take a look at the winds. So I'm going to switch over to the surface winds here on the GFS model, and we'll look at that as well. And again, you're not going to see a consolidation of the winds, but you're going to see an elongated wind field that could certainly still cause problems. Obviously, power outages are going to be a big concern through the islands in Puerto Rico, which has, has had a very suspect power grid, which has been noted by many of you who live on the island. So when we're talking about sustained tropical storm force winds that are going to get stronger towards Puerto Rico, that certainly becomes a concern. So again, as we get into tomorrow morning, let's query some of these numbers for us here. Let me bring those on real quick. And again, if you know this, it likes to jump time frame on me here. So it does look like the center would be trying to move right over Guadalupe. You can see that the winds are lighter there. And then we have these sustained winds, which are going to be in that 30 to 35 mile an hour range. So a little bit weaker here, even on the GFS from what the Hurricane Center is calling for. But again, these are sustained winds. And now we start to pick those up, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis towards Ceiba, St. Eustatius, right? And those just get stronger and stronger. But Antigua, Barbuda, all need to be aware that I'm expecting winds to be 40 plus in those areas. Then as we get towards the wee hours of Wednesday morning, here you go, sustained winds over St. Croix of over 50 miles an hour towards Culebra, Vieques, St. Thomas, St. John, Tortola, Virgin Gorda here, 40 to 50 sustained. Puerto Rico, not as much as of yet, but those winds will begin to move over. And one thing that the models have a hard time doing is they can pick up the winds offshore, but they're just not as good as picking them up onshore. So we can see that on this center line, now the winds are getting into that 60 mile an hour range, and that is possible on the eastern sides of Puerto Rico. San Juan, Ponce East, Fajardo certainly here on this. But there will also be some stronger winds here, probably even more than what we're seeing. You see off of the Isabela area here, Arecibo, 30 to 40, all right? So those are what the winds are going to look like as we get to late Tuesday, early on Wednesday. And then throughout the rest of the period here, again, today is the 12th, so this is going to be early on Thursday and then on Friday. And we just mentioned that this system just gets stronger and stronger. And now we're back to a hurricane here as we get deeper into the week. Let me, again, put this into motion. And I promise you, we're going to get more into what's happening in Bermuda coming up. But in the shorter term, sloppier system, tropical storm, hurricane, following that center line a little bit more. Real quickly as well, I didn't mean to go that far off towards the west, but I just wanted to mention that even in the Windward Islands here, if we put this into motion, that's still going to be 20 to 25 mile an hour winds. Now, there's another way that I can show you these winds, which I think are kind of cool. These are our wind vectors. So it's the same model, but it's a better idea when I'm throwing on these arrows here. It's going to just take a second to load up. But what you're going to end up seeing here is where the winds are coming from, right? And you're going to get an idea that some areas are going to have all different kinds of wind directions. And obviously, that could be very important for water inundation. Strong easterlies are going to pile up some water on the eastern side of the leewards, portions of the Virgin Islands, and the eastern sides of Puerto Rico. And those are the areas with the potential for some storm surge issues. So check in with your local governments as far as that goes. But if I pause this here, and this is going to be tomorrow afternoon, we can clearly see on the GFS model where that center of circulation is, and I'll even back it up in time just a little bit more here. You can see it, as I mentioned, coming through Guadalupe, and then you can see it kind of slicing right through portions of Puerto Rico. So again, obviously we'd have south winds here, but on the back end side for places like Punta Cana, it would be more of a west wind towards the western sides of Puerto Rico. And then of course, as it pulls away, we're going to have strong southerly winds. Now we're still going to have north winds in the Turks and the Caicos, and then northeast to north winds in the Bahamas as this system pulls up. And obviously this is not a direct threat to the U.S. eastern seaboard, at least at this point in time. I don't expect it to be, and for the Bahamas as well. But you get into these oranges, and that's when we're starting to see some hurricane force winds develop out of Ernesto. The other big factor is going to be rainfall. And before I show you that, let me show you the GFS model rainfall as well, and then we'll get into the European model. Again, you're going to see that along this track, we're going to be picking up very widespread 4 to 6 inches of rain, 100 to 150 millimeters of rain. This is going to lead to some flooding. And again, even south of where we have the tropical storm warnings like Dominica and Martinique, there's your 3 to 4 inches. It does taper off, but we've already had some heavier rain in Barbados. And we've had some in Martinique and St. Lucia and Trinidad as well. So you get the idea that widespread across the Lesser Antilles, heavy rain is possible. More concentrated up here though, our friends in Bermuda, in Antigua, how about 5-6 inches of rain there, Montserrat, Guadeloupe. Again, we're gonna average this out, but 4 to 6 inches, very, very likely within these spots. And then you've got the heavier rain coming into portions of the Virgin Islands. I would expect more in Virgin Gorda than what the GFS is showing. Same thing for St. Croix. You can see that just offshore, you've got 6 inches. So could that fall over the islands? Absolutely. 5 to 6 inches of rain would be no good for Puerto Rico, and the forecast in some areas is even for more than that as a possibility. Again, we're not going to have a ton of rain in the Turks and Caicos and even the eastern sides of Hispaniola if this track holds true, but along that center line, as we start to see Ernesto get stronger, now you're starting to get into 10, 12 plus inches of rain, and some of that heavier rain could be trying to move into Bermuda a little bit later as well. The European model shows you that heavier 3, 4, 5, 6 inches of rain, also has that recurve relatively quickly. There's Bermuda, and some of the very exceptional rain, more than a foot of rain close to Bermuda or just off towards the east. We'll get more into this as well, but we'll have some decent rain for portions of Central America. I know my friends in Jamaica had a little bit of rain for today as well. I do want to talk about the specific hazards of Ernesto right now. So let's start off with the storm surge. We looked at the rainfall. So for the eastern side of Puerto Rico, from San Juan all the way back down through Fajardo and Guayama, and then for Culebra, Vieques, St. Thomas, St. John, St. Croix, 1 to 3 foot storm surge. Now this is from the National Weather Service from the United States. So obviously this is for US territories here. Other areas like the British Virgin Islands and the Leeward Islands, please check in with your local government for the latest statements on things like storm surge, surf and sea conditions, rainfall forecasts, all of that, okay? But this is the storm surge for Puerto Rico and the US Virgin Islands. Obviously, boating should not be occurring here, right? We should all be in safe harbor because we're going to start to see some nearly double-digit wave heights begin to move in. Now, there'll be some long period swells. We're going to get some choppier conditions as well, but you can see here on this legend that we'll start to see those 8, 10, maybe even 12-foot waves in the picture tonight, throughout Tuesday, throughout Wednesday, and then we might be talking about 14, 16 higher foot waves, potentially getting close to Bermuda on Friday and Saturday. So we could have some extremely rough surf and sea conditions coming in with Ernesto. So let's talk about the overall impacts, okay? This hasn't changed much since the 11 a.m. advisory, so it's about the same if you watch the latest video. 4 to 6 inches are likely for a good portion of the Leeward Islands and the Virgin Islands. That's 100 to 150 millimeters of rain. It's 3 to 6 for Puerto Rico, but is a maximum of maybe 10 inches of rain. And again, water inundation, flash flooding, landslides, mudslides, all come along with that kind of rain. And thankfully, Ernesto will still have some good forward speed. If it was a slower system, these numbers would be exceptionally higher, but it will still be moving quite quickly through these areas. Sustained winds of over 40 miles an hour, but some gusts to 60, maybe even gusty a little bit higher for portions of the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. That storm surge of 1 to 3 feet, large swells, 8 to 12 foot seas That's 2.4 to 3.7 meters, and obviously dangerous surf conditions. Again, friends, it is your responsibility to check in with your local government where you live for any up-to-date pertinent information, and obviously any things that you need to do before Ernesto arrives. All right, so that's what's happening with Ernesto in these areas. If we go back out to the map, and we now take a look at what's happening in the longer term here. Again, this is going to find a weakness in the ridge off the United States East Coast, and all the models have this recurving, all right? So again, not expecting direct impacts for the U.S. East Coast or the Bahamas, but unfortunately now we have to start talking about our friends in Bermuda, all right? So if we slow this down and bring this back up, first of all, a little bit of frontal rain coming into Bermuda in the next couple of days, but we see that the GFS takes Ernesto very close to Bermuda. The 16th is Friday, and then so Friday and into Saturday. And again, the Hurricane Center has unfortunately a Category 2 hurricane with winds of 110 miles an hour, which is teetering on Category 3, moving very close to Bermuda. Again, we never look at the center line, but that cone of uncertainty is basically, has Bermuda encompassed. So my friends in Bermuda need to be paying very close attention for the potential for hurricane impacts to move into your area late this week and early into the weekend. Obviously, I'll keep you updated. We've got some time. Things can still change. The best case scenario would be a quicker recurve to the east, keeping you on the generally weaker side of Ernesto on the west. But strengthening is likely with Ernesto. If I put on the forecast models, right, the spaghetti plots, a couple of things I want to show you here, right? Most of them follow this curve. There's a couple of outliers that throw it out here, but we can discount those for now because those are the ones that never developed a low-level center of circulation, and the easterlies just pulled them off towards the west. So now that we actually have a low-level center of circulation, we have to buy into the fact that we're going to have this recurve, and the vast, vast majority, right, of the tropical models, our spaghetti plots, are running. And if you notice, a lot of them are down the center line towards Bermuda, but let's hope we try and pull some of those off towards the east a little bit more. If we take a look at the winds, and I bring up the winds, and then we pull this back here. I got to loop it up, I guess. So give me 1 second. I'll just take a quick second to loop up here again. I always do this while we're waiting on these models. If you haven't hit the like button yet, if you haven't subscribed yet, you're getting something out of this video. I wholeheartedly appreciate it, friends. So again, here comes a much stronger Ernesto towards Bermuda. And again, why that does that, why that jumps in time when I hit that button, I don't know. But here we go. Notice the GFS kind of wobbles it. But on this eastern side, we're picking up Cat 1 to close to Cat 2 winds. And again, the official forecast from the Hurricane Center is actually a Category 2, 110, but gusts to 130. So even stronger than what the GFS model is showing, all right? If we look at the European ensemble members, they're still very much in agreement to strengthen Ernesto into a hurricane with the recurve, with Bermuda potentially again getting direct impacts Friday and into Saturday. A few more of the European models pull it farther east. Maybe we get lucky and it stays actually farther west and we slip in between the U.S. seaboard and just get some swells along the North Carolina coastline and some swells for Bermuda. That would be great news, but we can't, wish cast that. We have to keep an eye on things empirically, as we say. We can see the GFS models here, the ensembles, not as many of them, but the majority of them, again, have more of direct impacts for Bermuda as well. If we look at those spaghetti plots on a intensity track, right? The majority of them have this as a tropical storm, Tuesday, Wednesday, look at the bottom of your screen, through the Leeward Islands, Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico, but then quickly intensifying, and a vast majority of them as we get into Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the closer approach to Bermuda, Cat 1, Cat 2 strength, even a couple of them towards Cat 3. We'll see how that plays out. Okay, friends, that is all the information I have on Ernesto, all right? I do want to cover all of my other friends in the Caribbean and the Bahamas, and we'll do that right now. First, I want to start off with my friends in Jamaica. Had some good rain in some areas for today, fairly overcast in a couple of spots. It's been very hot, but we've had some decent storms. A couple of showers here developing over the eastern side of the island earlier. We've had a few more storms in places like Montego Bay and Cambridge. And now, again, the western sides of our area will actually be drying out a bit as some of the moisture from Ernesto gets pulled up to the north and to the east. We've had a couple of storms, mainly in Haiti today. Across Hispaniola, a couple of showers in the Dominican Republic. It's been a relatively quiet forecast for the Bahamas. Just a couple of isolated showers and storms over Andros. Cuba's had a few showers and storms for today. They've really just continued to see this localized thunderstorm activity with the heat of the day. And again, friends, feels like temperatures 110, 115 in a lot of spots. Fahrenheit, that's 43 to 45 degrees Celsius. Storms are becoming more active through Central America. Places like Honduras and Roatan and La Chiva and San Pedro Sula. Scattered storms for inland Belize and Guatemala. A few storms up in portions of the Yucatan as well. West of Cancun and Cozumel, storms have been trying to fire up back towards Panama and Costa Rica. And this is where we've had the most active weather. Not that far out, Rusty. Yes, let's just look at the world. Not as much active weather here, but storms are going to continue to develop. ABC Islands have been extremely hot and dry, guys. Temperatures for afternoon highs about 35 degrees Celsius for Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. Dangerous heat, friends. Please, please, please be very cautious if you live in those areas. Back over to the rain, and we're going to go island by island here with the rainfall forecast. So let me drop this back down to basically the next few days and loop this up. I mean, again, obviously, what's happening with Ernesto is going to dominate the forecast. In these areas, the Leeward Islands and the Greater Antilles are going to be the wettest. We're still going to have good rain for the Windward Islands tomorrow, but as Ernesto pulls away, we'll actually get some drier air. Same thing for places like Guyana and Suriname and Venezuela, Nueva Esparta, ABC Islands, not really going to buy a lot of rain. Notice the central and the western sides of the Caribbean will also begin to dry out a bit as well. Not expecting as much rain activity in these areas. And the Turks and the Caicos, again, shaved. And it really depends if it's on the western side of this track or the eastern side of this track. But I expect there to be more rain into late Wednesday, Thursday for the Turks and Caicos. It'll be a little bit earlier for places like the Dominican Republic. But as, of course, the orientation of the Bahamas pulls north and west, you get farther away from those direct impacts. Now, again, swells out of the east and more of a northeast wind for places like Freeport and Nassau. But as far as getting any rain, and those who have asked me, Rusty, am I going to be impacted directly by this? Places like Jamaica and the Cayman Islands and the Bahamas and Central America and the Yucatan, the answer is no. So let's go over your rain forecast island by island. The Northwest Bahamas will continue with isolated storms with the heat of the day. Central and Southeast Bahamas, especially the Southeast Bahamas, better chance for rain late Wednesday, Thursday with the closest approach of Ernesto, but still off towards your east. Turks and the Caicos, rain chances ramp up very significantly. Again, may not be extremely heavy rain, but the chance is going to be high. Cuba stays with good rain chances, just isolated showers for the Cayman Islands. Belize City, about a 40 to 50% chance over the next 3 days. Cancun and Cozumel, just isolated rain. More isolated in nature for our friends in Jamaica as well. Dominican Republic's rain chances go much higher. And again, if the GFS model holds true, that rain chance late Wednesday, Thursday would actually be 100%. Puerto Rico and the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, widespread rain starting, sometime late tonight, but mainly tomorrow and Wednesday. And again, the heavy rain, the flash flooding potential, drying out a bit on Thursday. Bermuda's rain chances just go higher and higher through the week, but they're going to have a few showers here the next few days, well before Ernesto decides to arrive, and hopefully it doesn't, but it might. Anguilla, 100% chance for rain the next few days. St. Kitts and Nevis, obviously very high rain chances through Wednesday as well. Same thing for our friends in Antigua and Barbuda. So it's, 100% chance of rain down towards Martinique for tomorrow. Still high rain chances early on Wednesday, drying out on Thursday. St. Lucia's rain chance tomorrow is 90%, then drier Wednesday, Thursday. Same thing for our friends in the St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Barbados, Grenada, 80% chance for rain tomorrow, dries out relatively quickly Wednesday, Thursday. Tobago and Trinidad, 70% chance for your Tuesday, 40% chance. Now, anywhere that I've just mentioned for Tuesday, still heavy rain and localized flash flooding is a possibility. Suriname and Guyana, 50% chance for rain the next several days. Nueva Esparta has a decent rain chance for tomorrow, then drier Wednesday, Thursday, and just a few showers possible, but mainly hot and dry for our friends in the ABC Islands. Okay, friends. So again, Tropical Storm Ernesto beginning to impact the Leeward Islands tonight. Weather going downhill, deteriorating as we get into our Tuesday morning. All of these areas under tropical storm warnings. Again, programming notes. The radar live stream will return tonight. It will run continuously overnight until tomorrow morning. And then I will be live here at Meteo Mundo with a live stream tracking Ernesto through the Leeward Islands tomorrow morning. And then we'll talk about doing another live stream tracking it through the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico as well. Again, friends, I appreciate all the support. Thank you so much for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing. Tune in to the radar live stream tonight. Have those notifications on, and I will be live tomorrow morning with the latest on Ernesto right here at Meteo Mundo.